Hi, my name is Howard Julien. I'm one of the cardiology fellows at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital. I'm here with Senator Charles Grassley.
Chuck Grassley.
Chuck Grassley, fair enough.
Yeah.
Uh, Here on the Fits in the Go blog, we have a couple of questions just germane to fellows and training concerns. We'd like to know your positions regarding funding for GME programs as well as funding for the NHLBI through the
Yeah.
NIH.
Well, very easy to answer the first one because NIH funding is very popular here. There's a lot of budget constraints right now. We're going to try to get as much money as those budget constraints will allow into NIH funding. Within the funding, with a multitude of the things that are funded, I prefer not to make a political decision by having Congress say how much money is going to be spent on this research and that research, because quite frankly, we're not scientists, and we ought to let the academic community make the determination of how much money would go into this sort of research and that sort of research.
And regarding the GME funding?
That's also very important and really a major issue in rural America where we don't get enough of the GME research. And in about a dozen states get the vast majority of it, as you probably know. And, again, it's going to be maintained. It's best maintained if it's a part of Medicare. There's some people that have wanted to move it out of Medicare into something else, but then you probably get into a situation where there's some doubt whether or not it'll be adequately funded. And it may not be adequately funded at this point, obviously, but there's a certainty of getting a certain amount of money because of the percentage that's granted. And beyond that, I'm going to be fighting for get a more national distribution of the money.
We're also joined by Dr. Nicolas Shammas.
Senator, I'm Nick Shammas. I'm a cardiologist in Davenport, Iowa. And we're all for transformation of care, for value-based medicine. What is Congress doing to ensure our practice stability so we can continue to be part of that transformation of care?
Well, obviously, you've named the one thing that comes up every year, and I don't like to tell you that Congress operates from year to year, and we have over a long period of time to bring so much uncertainty. And I just heard it from you, a doctor, but let me tell you, come to my town meetings in Iowa, you're going to have the wife of the doctor probably be stronger in the conviction and the question of what are you going to do about it than even the doctor. They probably have to pay the bills in their family, Anyway, we do now have a solution from a policy standpoint that could almost, from a policy standpoint, pass the Congress unanimously. In fact, dozens of doctor groups come through my office every year to advocate for this or that, and quite frankly, we have not heard in the 1 year that the policy changes have been suggested opposition to the policy. But then on something doctors don't get into is how it's going to be paid for. That's our job. There's two questions. One, does it have to be paid for or not? If there's a majority of the Congress decides it doesn't have to be paid for, then that's the end of it. We'll pass that policy, and you won't have a problem for the next 10 years. In the case of paying for it, then there's a great deal of disagreement, both within members of Congress, how to pay for it, but also within the delivery of health care, like between hospitals and doctors, or between some other providers and doctors, how to pay for it. That is not an easy thing for us to accomplish, and that's why it was extended just till March 31st. But let me give you a historical answer. Not a very satisfactory answer, I'll admit, because it's the same answer I'd be giving you over the last 10 years. But you do not have to worry about doctors taking a 30% cut in reimbursement, because history tells you when you get up to that deadline, Congress is at least going to extend it. But the best thing to do would be to take the uncertainty out of your practice and and make sure that this policy is paid for or not paid for but passed, and then you wouldn't have to worry about it for 10 years.
Thank you very much. I mean, that's reassuring to a lot of our practices to know the policy is in place, to protect, at least the drastic, Medicare cut that could be facing us next year. The in-office ancillary services exemption, where do you stand on that?
Well, there's not a place to stand right now because we're doing oversight, trying to get everything nailed down and make a sound policy decision when we get all the oversight done.
And one last question. For fellows in training that are interested in engaging politicians and engaging their local representatives, do you have any advice for them?
Sure, do it. But I'd like to give you a longer answer. Remember, those of us elected are one half of the process of representative government. You're the other half of that process. Dialogue is the essence of representative government. I have a responsibility to come to my constituents, but you also have a responsibility to come to your elected representatives. That can be in person, like you're doing right now. It can be by email, postal mail. People call into my office, leave their name and address. They'll get an answer on paper. I brag about answering every communication. If you don't get an answer, write me an answer letter why I didn't answer your question. But the most important thing is don't ever be apologetic about talking to a member of Congress. I have people, when I'm home in Cedar Falls on weekends going to my church, I have people come up and tell me, can I ask you a question? Well, of course you can ask me a question. I tell them I get paid by the year, not by the day or the hour, see? And so consequently, you got to remember that there's First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, but there's a fourth First Amendment we don't often teach very well in school: the right to petition your government, redress of grievances. That's what you're doing when you talk to your elected representative. You have a constitutional right to do it, and you ought to exercise it. And that would be my advice, that not enough people in medicine do their constitutional duty, that I would call a duty. It's a privilege as well, and it's a right as well. But I know why. Because doctors are busy. But it's too bad that they're so busy, because we would profit considerably by having more doctors being politically active, or I shouldn't say just politically active, because that's just like getting people elected. I mean active in the process of government after an election.
Well, thank you for taking some time to sit with us and chat. For more on this series, please go to youtube.com/fitsonthego. Thank you.